then take on any questions as far as I can answer to the best of my knowledge in a very uncertain period. Things are changing daily. So we have an economic tsunami now as a country. That is the reality. Anybody who understands economics would not look at it on an emotional platform, but a professional platform, and we need to solve problems. At the outset, I would like to give my view on this is when you fight a war, whether it's a military war, you understand we have fought a military war for a long time and the cost of it has been very high, both in terms of material and resources and of course human beings. Similarly, I would not expect anybody of you to believe that this economic war, which is one of the few countries in the world who has fallen into this situation, is going to have many, many casualties. Already we are seeing it, but it can be much greater with much greater number of businesses who will have to close, and also the unemployment that will create around of it, and a series of disruptions that could come. So that outset I have to say. So if people, I'm very much of an activist on the Facebook. I can see many people want to have the solution tomorrow for what we have created for a few decades and accelerated in few years and got ourselves here. That's how I see the problem. So in my Facebook page, in Sinhalese, I have written not the best of Sinhalese, but 2 posts which I posted some time back. The problem seems to be a $51 billion external debt with increasing number now coming out. Interestingly, there are hidden amounts of billions of dollars that have not been in books. Now they are finding it out. So some people say the estimated debt for foreign debt is about 60 billion plus, even higher than what we have officially known. So in my opinion, if we start the process of reforms now, which we have not in terms of most fundamentals going to IMF, it will take at least 18 to 24 months, to which I agree with the Prime Minister who made a statement in Parliament that it will be 2025, the earliest we get back to probably where we were. But in hindsight, I think it's more than that, because we got to start with, not with IMF, but these 51 billion debtors who have to agree with us, with our law firms who have now been appointed to restructure, reschedule this debt, including the Chinese government. And different people have different opinions of whether they can afford to take a haircut in economic terms or various terms to extend the period. Already one company has gone to courts in New York. So IMF won't come to us before we sort out with our debtors, overseas debtors of this $51 billion. So I put this in Sinhalese because the audience must understand that there are no quick solutions to any one of us. I don't know whether there are miracles, but my knowledge and experience in this subject, for the shipping and exports, that I studied this economics, I don't see that coming very fast. So as you know, this is where, yeah, the 51 billion officially, but as I said to you all, the dollar seems to be the dollar price is higher, more than $51 billion, but $61 billion of debt we owe to the rest of the world, and we don't have even $100 million in our pocket at the government central bank. So as you all know, if we predict, I predict Facebook pages you will find, I predicted hyperinflation in Sri Lanka by about April, March, or latest by June. So as you know, we have reached what is called hyperinflation, not just inflation. Anything anything price increases going above 50% per month is considered hyperinflation. We have seen hyperinflation countries like Zimbabwe, where inflation reaches up to 2000% per annum. So with that situation, we could not hold on to any more our currency artificially, which was held artificially, which led to all our reserves getting dried up because we were holding the currency artificially at 203 by selling the dollars that the central bank had in its reserves. And we also sold the gold, whatever the gold we have had, to hold this currency, and suddenly we realized economically this is not viable because we all know that around us with the holding of the rupee at 203, a dark black market emerged. So today, once a black market is created, getting rid of that is a very difficult situation. You know, the worker remittances have come down by half, and everything of commodities are available in the black market. What is called the India or Hawala system has reached in because of the reason that we have the rupee without allowing the market forces to determine our country's direction. So today we are being forced with a slap and a shock as a nation of economic reality and real economic management taught at universities to professionals. Of course, there are so many economists who are giving unorthodox views, but never proven. So the bottom line is, we as a nation, specifically last 20 years or more, have been living on the borrowed money, spending beyond our means. What is beyond our means is the trade deficit and the total net borrowings and total net revenues that a country gets. So, for example, luxury food, buying foreign clothes. I borrow actually somebody else's dollars. It can be the workers' dollars, it can be the exporters' dollars, it can be the tourism dollars. But use those dollars while I am not bringing in dollars to the system. So the trade deficit means I consume more than what I export to the world, or what I earn for as foreign exchange to the country. Either way, whatever the means that we can do. So as a country, we've been having continuous what is called trade deficits. I will show you the numbers as we come. And we also have as a government what is called budget deficits. So that when the government wants to do various projects, finally takes a tax out of the people, that tax is not enough to manage that budget. Therefore, the government also borrows locally and internationally. So we keep on a borrowing economy, and we have spent beyond our means. So just to give you a quick picture, this is expenditure, and the other side is the earnings. So the expenditure is, if you look at 2021, 3.5 trillion rupees, and the income was only 1.4 trillion. So the deficit of the budget of government alone is 2058 trillion. That is about over 50% of the budget is borrowed by the government. You have a safety net. So if you have a budget deficit between 3 to 7 single digits or at least below 5%, it's always you can say that it is a manageable budget deficit. Now, currently, Sri Lanka's budget deficit has gone over 12% as I speak, not on the 2021, but today. And yesterday in the parliament, it was announced that it will reach 15%, could reach 15% of government budget deficit. So we are in a very red zone as far as the, and with this budget only the Samurdi, the national education system is given free education. Then the interesting, the deficit, historical mistakes that was never corrected until the economy exploded. So now we have exploded, everybody knows that. You can see 2010, just look at the blue line, we won the war. And you can see how budget deficit is bloated, not because our exports or anything went bazaar in income revenue high, but we started importing various things. We put a party in the country. We allowed vehicles to luxury vehicles. You don't see this kind of luxury vehicles that you see in Colombo. You go to any city in Dhaka or Mumbai, India, you don't have that density of luxury vehicles. So we kept on borrowing and importing consumables as a country, and the exports kept at a very low rate. But when a lot of people make a mistake, trade deficit is not calculated with foreign earnings of workers. Trade deficit is what you export and import. The difference between export and import. So what you get more from foreign revenue is we get workers' remittance. But remember, what is not shown here is there are other expenses. Sri Lankan students expenditure for overseas education is about $2.5 billion, was as at 19. Our travel, our trips, our business tours, our holidays cost another 2 billion. So whatever we earn from tourism also went out of the country. Also, when we have tourism earnings, which is part of the services exports, we have imports for tourism also. So there are a lot of budgetary. End of the day, we have a huge budget deficit. In the parliament, we see that every year budget. So borrowed, what do? We keep on borrowing without looking at how we are going to pay back. Then the other way of getting foreign exchange to a country is foreign direct investment. Now, look at the world has seen very positive foreign direct investment, especially developing countries and Asia. But Sri Lanka has got a mere low percentage of foreign direct investment. Why? Because of our inward-looking protectionist and nationalism-based policies. Foreigners don't like to come here. So they go to India. India had about over $200 billion of FDI during the pandemic. Look at what happened to Sri Lanka. You can see the numbers on the screen at the bottom. Basically, nothing comes, or the local guys who are already there having little bit expanding, and money is expected into the port development project are calculated. So Sri Lanka has not been getting its foreign direct investment either, while the world has seen massive growth over a period, 2021 year, and displayed on the screen. So no story that I can tell you at the moment we have done right. Look at our debt, losses in the state-owned enterprises. Now this is 2015 numbers. I could not get the latest one, which is much heavier, much more heavier. So you can see the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Ceylon Electricity Board, Sri Lankan Airlines, SLTV, or Mihin Lanka, that was a bankrupt airline, all have given us nothing but our taxpayers' money being sucked into a black hole that has never been governed, because politics of this country have allowed it to happen because of the corruption we all know, non-transferability, and groups of people running monopolistic institutions. I don't have to explain the corruption. I think it's exposed every day. Those who listen to Pope reports must be hearing of them. And then we ran an airline that we thought that we could single-handedly run until Emirates left. Last 3 years of Emirates, Sri Lankan Airlines made profits by a foreign management. So we all know what happened to that. The foreign management was chased out when we took over, and the rest of it is history. There is corruption, there is mismanagement. I don't have to tell IMF and everybody has point blank told us the mismanagement. So you can see on the other side what the losses of Sri Lankan Airlines is equivalent to many things that we could have done right. Even the man who is in the rural part of the country is paying Sri Lankan Airlines, probably has not seen an airline or airport. So we are carrying on these institutions, putting the burden on the people of this country. And mind you, 80% of the people of this country are quite poor. There's a very poor sector today by about 50%. There's another 30% of lower middle income who are getting pushed as poorer. And there's an extreme rich class of about 5% who manage majority of the economy. So unequal economic management is also part of the problem. So if you look at some of the management losses, you can see that some of the state-owned companies have been continuously making losses, and politicians have been very reluctant to make them profitable or manageable or go into public-private partnership, because that is their business. They employ people in these organizations and they make money out of various deals out of these organizations. So it's corruption and everything to nepotism, everything is used through these organizations. And you can see they are not even accountable. Some of these institutions don't have financial reports for years. They don't publish it, nobody is asking. The public of this country, the private sector is also not bothered. So they also don't question. Every budget I have listened since I could remember, when the government presents every budget, all the chambers says very good budget. If I'm not mistaken, you can go to Google and check the past statements issued by most of the chambers or associations. They praise the budgets. They don't look at the previous year's budget, even how it was. So this is the private sector of this country also is quite a bit of a responsible party as far as I am concerned for this economic collapse. So you look at this, 2 bombs at the economy while we were going through COVID. In 2019, when the new government came, in fact, I'm one of the first to go to MTV channels and say that what a crazy thing to do this, taking off the taxes. I put you on the screen what Mangala Samaravira tweeted on 28 November 2019. So the country's budgets were anyway deficit. We have to run the budget deficit. And we give another 20% tax cut off to the whole economy. You know, in Arab countries, when you go to the top branch, the tax level is up to 48%. In Sri Lanka, it's 24%, but they want another cut on that also. Then, of course, we all know what happened to the fertilizer problem. I think it's now international news. You don't have to ask me. The whole agriculture sector is distorted. And with these tax cuts, started our economic collapse massively accelerated. Because, you know, the Moody's and the S&P's and all these...
Tony, Mangihin enna.
Excuse me. So what happened was the international organizations ranked us as gradually ranked us as a terrible place to do business. And our officials here, we all know, laughed at the international community saying that they are not saying the right thing and all that. I don't want to mention it, but we all know what happened during the last few years. And as far as I know, the president did not understand the ball about the subject, so he had to listen to those officials, and he didn't have the right team around him. Even his close friends who told the right thing probably was not here even a hearing, because either they are political friends or whatever. That's the fact that I can tell. because we were also in the industry and we told, I myself personally told him that this tax cut is going to get a serious effect in the country. That was at the National Law Conference in March 2020. So that is history, but these are two grave mistakes which he accepted publicly, that he did two mistakes, and today it has been accelerated and we have fallen into the bottom of the pit. So as I said, look at the budget deficit. The country's budget deficit is now moved to 12.2% from 9.6% in 2021. And our GDP is shrinking. That is unavoidable. So this is the macroeconomic picture. Without macroeconomic picture understanding, my solutions, what I'm going to talk is about solutions. That's what you all are here for. So I'll take another 15 minutes maximum and then stop there. So you can see our debt borrowings. So international sovereign bond borrowings are 47%. So it has been sovereign bonds started in 2007. And it was increased and increased, and finally we ended up at about 47% of our total debt, which we are now talking about this $51 billion debt. So debt for wrong reasons. I think there is a cartoon that I wanted to share with you. Even I was hammered by very many people when these developments were taken without any what is called business plans or what we call the studies that has to be done to do a project, business studies, feasibility studies, we call it. So these projects were done without any feasibility studies. They were done only with what is called construction feasibilities, not business feasibilities. But today everybody is turning back and saying, yes, this is debt. Debt that is not bringing any return on investment to the people of Sri Lanka. Now, is debt bad? I would not agree. I would not agree if somebody says debt is bad. Every country takes debt. Look at the Mahavali project. If you look at the Mahavali project, these are the 6 or 7 dams that I put you on picture to remind you in the 80s. The fastest economic growth in Sri Lanka's history came during this period of 78 to 1983 until we messed up with the criminal riots. Immediate benefits of Mahavali projects. For example, if you finish Victoria project, immediate hydroelectrification came into the country at low cost, provided the needed power establishment for economic zones to attract FDI. That is how the Katunayaka zone and the Diagama zones and etc. came. Reduced and eliminated flooding in many cultivated lands and cities. If you can remember, anybody can remember those days, Ratnapura used to get inundated before these projects came in. So the economic benefit is massive. New irrigation helped to do farmlands and paddy and other crops. They developed new cities. If you look at the east, it's a fact. Created thousands of new jobs of farming and inland fisheries, increased domestic tourism and industrialization, increased the health of people, providing clean drinking water, new nature reserves and dry zone management, increased employment through industrialization. Now, these are immediate and measurable things that Mahavali project brought in. It happens the next day, it opens. So there is no problem. These are some of these debt. But later those governments actually gave us this money as grants. If you can remember, Victoria project, the biggest one, was granted by the British government. Then came these projects, which everyone thought fantastic. Hambantota Port, I was one of the vociferous opponents for doing it without feasibility studies. And no shipping line in the world said they will bring business here. About the cricket stadium, we know what other infrastructure, we know about the Hambantota highways equivalent to Los Angeles, we know the Nelum Kulunas, we all know none of them are bringing return on investments. So our debt situation, what was already there, got multiplied. Now, some people try to blame China for this. I don't blame China for this. We come up with projects and tell the Chinese to give us loans. And we know everything what happens with these loans, the commissions, the overpricing and everything to whatnot is coming out today. So obviously people of this country know what has gone through. So these are white elephants. For 10 years, Hambantota Port, we could not do anything. Even the Chinese today are not making money. I must tell you, I'm in the field, I know that they are not making money. They are also trying to but China has so much of reserve, they can afford to hold assets for long term and get things done. So,
Mr. Rohan, excuse me. I think
yeah.
we lost the screen. Don't know whether others can see it.
We can see.
Yeah, then
Okay.
It's an issue with you.
Yes.
So I have given this snapshot of Mahaveli versus recent infrastructure projects. You can read it out. So obviously, any man with a common sense can see it. But borrowing is not a bad thing as long as you can borrow it for good reasons, and the people of this country gets the return on investment within a short period. So I was somebody who was lucky to work with Lalita Chulakmudali and Ronnie Dimil, and even to date I go and see Mr. Dimil. And their thinking was always different. So unfortunately, Sri Lanka has lost that kind of leaders. So getting back, today the government has announced, I think yesterday in Parliament it was announced, the government debt to GDP ratio is 120% and it can go up to 140% by next year. Nothing is good, numbers are not good. GDP also is coming down. Everything is not so. Another quick picture, look at our state sector. They have been expanding at humongous rates. Now it's 1.5 million people, and our tax money has come down relatively and stable, but the budget for the salaries and pensions have kept on increasing. So the whole of the earnings that the government makes goes to these loss-making state institutions and to pay salaries, not to do anything beyond that. So the development projects, so-called, all comes through borrowing. So that's how we have accumulated a separate $51 to $60 billion debt. So it's not an, so getting back to the solution, now we all know the quick snapshot of what we have done. I can do a 1 day's presentation, but if it was a physical meeting, if solo organized, it would have been more interactive and people can give different opinions and views. So it's not an easy road, I can tell you that much. I can guarantee you that much. It's not going to be an easy road. It's going to be long. It's going to be an uphill task, and it's going to be bumpy. This is the road I have showed you, although it's a highway. So if anybody is expecting miracles, I would also like to come to that person and learn how to do this miracle in economic terms, because rest of the countries are looking at us and they are disappointed with our performance in every factor. For example, the other day, if you all listen to Thomas, chairman of Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, who came and accused about a major project being asked to be given by the Indian Prime Minister. Now, we have to be careful of what we talk in public. That actually cut off our line of credit and oxygen from India, because whatever reason that it was put out, it hit the Indian Prime Minister's political career in India. So that's why we are in such a mess today this week, because the Indian second fuel credit line didn't come of $500 million. So we managed our politics in a disaster way, and I don't know whether it was done purposefully or not. For me, if somebody asked me, I will tell the reason it was done purposefully. It was playing of geopolitics in my own view. So the solutions, it's going to be very painful. We need to reset and resize the economy. Buildings and figures and having a luxury life like in a developed country anymore, unless we earn the dollars for it. And we need to resize the economy, means we need to what is called cut our needs. We need to readjust our living style. Consumption patterns have to be brought down, and that can be done by through economic fundamental tools. That is what, whether it is in Sri Lanka or in United States or in Japan or in Australia or in Singapore or India. Today you can see all the central banks around the world are increasing interest rates. Why? Because of global inflation. So obviously you've seen our central bank also is now going ahead with increasing interest rates. I think today also there was 100 basis points on the banking rate jump. So the average interest rates will come up to, treasury bill rates are now going up to 30%. What does that mean? That means you can't borrow, you can't consume, you can't borrow and consume either. So you are actually resizing and reducing the local economy. The Prime Minister yesterday gave the number in Parliament that we're coming down from an 88 billion economy to a $76 billion economy by next year. So we have contracted by 12 billion to $15 billion. We will have to contract, and that is part of the casualty I told you about at the beginning. There will be massive casualty in terms of job losses and quality of life and overall life, which we are seeing. Nobody has quick fixes for these things. So we need to have the exchange rate policy to fit the world market requirements, the demand and supply. Taxes have to be increased back again. Probably to that, it will have to be increased more than what it was in 2019. We will have to have flexible labor market, flexible product market. As global inflation, we are now sucking between both sides. We have created our own hole, due to our own activities. Then the world is also in a bad situation due to two reasons. One is the recovery of the COVID has given different signals in different markets due to supply chain breaks and production cycles break. And recently the most unpleasant news was the Russian war in Europe. So we are squashed between these two economic and political situations, which will hurt us more because they don't have any resources to fight that. Especially the external situation. We have such a small economy. We are smaller than the Mumbai Municipal Council in terms of the economy. So you can see our strengths. We are not strong enough to fight it back. We don't have any reserves to fight it back. So we have to resize our systems. So the solutions, what is most important is political stability. If we don't have political stability, we can't bring IMF or any other person to the picture because nobody is going to believe us. For example, I mean, if I was sitting in a company and if I see somebody who is coming to ask me for a loan and he doesn't have stability, whether his big boss is going to be there tomorrow or his financial director is going to be there tomorrow or the policy is going to change next week, I'm not going to give him money, my money, because somebody else's taxpayers' money. Remember, with the IMF or Indian credit line, it is some other countries' taxpayers' money that they are bringing to save our neck. So for that, what we need is political stability. So unfortunately, I don't see this political stability coming in Sri Lanka. And I don't see the powers who are holding into it understand that the damage they are doing daily to the country is actually digging the hole a little bit deeper every day that they don't take the right decisions. I don't want to get into the political analysis of this, but political stability is important. Then, of course, the tax reforms have to come. It has been announced. So everybody will have to go more pay tax. We cannot be subsidizing electricity bills. There are thousands of religious institutions this country has that pay peanuts. Therefore, every day you pass by their temples or churches or whatever, their lights are all on and extra lights are also on because they don't pay a bill, somebody else is paying the bill. So these things have to be, we have to learn a lesson once and for all. Interest rates have to go up. So the borrowings are going to go down and there's going to be impact on the SME sector. That's why I said casualties. So as interest rates goes up, demand for loans will go down and consumption will go down. So consumption goes down means when we are a net importer, our imports will come down to reduce our budget deficit. We have to fix our budget deficit. So none of these things are going to fix in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. This can, as I said, to stabilize it will take 2 years, in my personal opinion. You can see the exports also is not in our size of the economy. I have now come shown the size of the economy, which was published 2 days back. So the forecast of 2022 is actually now coming down to about $76 billion. The size of economy is coming down. Our economy was highest in 2018 at $88 billion. So you can see our exports compared to Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. When we started in the early 90s, we were the same levels. This particular picture shows up to a shorter period, but look at this one. Look at 2000 versus 2019, other countries versus Sri Lanka's exports. Bangladesh and Vietnam, if you specifically focus, you will see from together in 1990, we were together. Today, Vietnam actually now has cost 350 billion 2021.
I think we lost Rohan. No? 1 minute.
Here,
Yes.
Rohan, you were lost for a while. You had to repeat it.
okay, so this particular, I hope you can hear me now. So this particular slide talks about our friends in Bangladesh. If I give a list of countries versus Vietnam, who are newcomers to the world economy. Bangladesh and we started in 1990 together at about $2 billion with Vietnam. Today, Vietnam is at about $350 billion, graduated about $100 billion in 2 years. Bangladesh just reached $50 billion of exports in 2022. Sri Lanka still remains at $2.5 billion. And our exports as a percentage of gross domestic product has fallen from 35%, about 35% in 2000 to less than 15% now. So our export division has been all lip service since Premadasa died. That's the fact. I will give the credit to the man, because we in the apparel industry, rubber industry, export industry knows the commitment he had for the BOI projects and the export industry. So he actually grew it, and then until about 98, 99, it continued to grow, and then it started coming down. And for the last 20 odd years, it's been coming down as a percentage of GDP. So our foreign exchange earnings have been coming down. So the issue is we are in a vicious circle now. Recession is a vicious circle. Everything falls, production, sales falls, production falls, employment falls, income falls, again sales falls. So how do we fix our economy is a very important thing. So we need to change. So we need to go to the IMF. IMF is not going to solve our problems. It only gives us a platform to be stable. Once IMF comes on board, then only other countries will come to Sri Lanka and say, look, now that IMF money is coming to you, we know that our money is going to be relatively safe and your debt is restructured and you are going to do reforms in your horrifiedly corrupt economy. We might consider you what is called bridging finance. That is to survive day to day, bring our oil and give our medicines and essentials to the poor. We have to come up with a new social security structure for the poor. Janasavya or the other schemes are not going to be enough, because if you look at the World Bank statistics, last year alone 1 million people were pushed down to the below the poverty line. Now it must be well over 2 million people who are unable to eat a proper meal. So this is where we are right now. So we need to go to that reform agenda. Therefore, the central bank increasing interest rates, government increasing taxes, your subsidized electricity bill cannot be subsidized anymore. Your water bill that has been stagnant for 10 years at the same level cannot be stagnant anymore. So what can we do if you are, for example, if you have been a textile manufacturer for the local market, you need to open your eyes and look at export market. You need to we need to increase our exports and diversify the exports. For that, we need not only our own effort, but we need our foreign direct investors to come into Sri Lanka, where they can bring in capital infusion and market access to our products. We need to come up to open up free trade agreements like India, like Singapore. Singapore has 27 free trade agreements. When we tried to do one with Singapore, the whole country was burnt by the doctors of this country. When we try to go to India, every time we try to do something with India, people get into the streets saying that we are selling to India. So if you don't change this mindset, I am sorry to say my own economic beliefs and my understanding, we're not going to move forward like any other global hub, Singapore or Dubai, where we are scared of foreigners and we spread conspiracy theories every weekend against foreign direct investment. So we need to bring in those foreign direct investment to the country. So as I said, the way forward is we need to reduce consumption whether we like it or not. So that is the casualty of the. Then as citizens, we need to be innovative, develop new products, services, and export to the rest of the world. And even domestically, we need to increase our productivity. For example, you need to work, for example, none of our Sri Lankan companies still work on time. Forget about government. They don't use the most expensive Rolex watch to use to come to work or do a project or event on time. The other day I did a Bangladesh event online with Bangladesh. The High Commissioner of Bangladesh told me, Rohan, you need to start sharp at 5 o'clock. My people are all ready and waiting in Dhaka. The Sri Lankans who are asked to come at 4:45 still walks in at 4:45, 4:55, 5:15, 5:30. They walk. So this is a problem we have as a country. So we have to increase our productivity and efficiency. And of course, key to our success is going to be becoming an export-oriented economy. If political stability comes, we will have our tourism industry going again, which is another area that we have to stabilize and bring. But unfortunately, due to the global recession that is coming, the tourism also might have a slowdown again in the near future. But exports are something that we need to keep on working to get out of this problem and reduce consumption and get back to basics. So we might get 10 years behind and we start again. So change your mindset. World is very big. As you can see in the economic shift, we can see China is still doing business with United States, the biggest business partners in the world. Vietnam, who was bombed by America and killed over millions of people, not a million, but more probably, are doing biggest business partners, and 1,000 American companies are in Vietnam. And if you look at the Middle East, Israel and UAE are now business partners. They even have their ports run by Dubai Port Authority. So in Sri Lanka, this is also selling or some nationalism, we know that. So if this is the mindset that we are going to have, you can see India is moving out to the world's third economy within the next decade. If we don't marry India in economic terms, economic integration with India, that is the market we have, the biggest market with a huge middle class in the world. If we don't have the right policies, have the economic trade agreements and travel agreements and energy sharing agreements, we're not going to move forward. That also I can tell you. Because some people recently I saw on news when there was a suggestion to bring a electricity cable from South India to Sri Lanka through Manna. Or people said we are going to lose our sovereignty. Now what rubbish is this? If you look at our own region, India shares power with Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. All these countries share power. They have power lines. So now no sovereignty has broken off Bangladesh or Nepal because India has a power line with them. So again, this mindset, and our media is being one of the biggest damages. They never educate people on these subjects. We always only blame the politicians and so-called uneducated, and I don't say uneducated, the opportunistic politicians, and also the public also even, but about the media from morning till evening. Have you ever seen a positive news published in media or educated media about how Singapore works or how India works, how these power lines are working in India, so that our mindset is changed. So they give a lot of ammunition to who are still Leninist people, who are saying everything is Desiya. So that Sri Lanka cannot run a free economy that's in front of us if you want to get out of this problem. And coming to the end, I must say that look at the countries who have fallen into the same trap. There are no magic pills. I have put the Venezuelan flag, the Greece flag, which is struggling for the last 10 years being a European country. Lebanon was one time the paradise nation of that part of the world, who had the best healthcare system, is like Sri Lanka, worse than Sri Lanka. After the last 5 years, they are struggling. Zimbabwe, I don't think I don't have to tell you. Recently, they have completely given up their currency and now going into gold as a way of exchanging. So Poland in Europe also came through similar hardships. And the bottom line here is these countries have not come out of the mess even after 5-6 years. So if somebody is expecting miracles after 2 years, I am willing to accept that miracles, provided they come and do it. But in the real world, it takes at least a decade. If you look at historical thing, even countries like Argentina, Peru, all these countries, there's historical evidence. The reform process takes time because when reforms take place, people agitate. Most people don't understand. Therefore, they agitate. I will also have to take a haircut when the government takes a haircut. My savings also might get affected if I have put in treasury bills. I will have to accept it. Whether I like it or not, I accept it. That is my country's real position. So you can't blame anybody and say the current people are doing something if they are doing the right thing to the economy. So that's all I can say. So if there are any questions, I think I can see the chat box. I'll open it now. And I'll read it out if I can. Okay, some background. That's one can speak it closer. Okay. So
Rohan, can we off the sharing? If we can stop it, then I can put you on to the middle.
yeah, I am just going out of it. Okay. So I hope the facts are a bit hard, but brutal and realistic. But from Mahavali project to what we built today and our luxury way of living in this country, as you know, the per capita income in the Western province is much higher than the rest of the 8 provinces. In Colombo City, it comes to a developed country's per capita income of about $12,000, and the Western province process $4,000. Rest of the provinces are all very poor. So the Gini, what we call in economics is a Gini factor, the currency that is, the wealth that is distributed is so unfairly distributed in this country. This problem is continuing to grow at a social level also. Sorry, I'm having a cup of tea.
No worries. Rohan, you can pick from the chat box. There's a one question, but before you go, because I wanted to, there is an additional thing which I wanted to put it, because you said 50% are the poorest and 30% are the middle income, while the 20% are the people who are able to pay taxes directly and the 30 is indirectly. But when the outcome comes, it affects the whole, mainly affect the 50% of increasing all the basic needs. So in that scenario, when we have the majority of them are poor, when taxes are increasing, how the social issue, how to handle it?
The system announced because that number of families that depend on the Samurdhi is going to go up by many folds, and the people who are earning higher salaries will have to contribute more to the economy because as I said in Australia, after a certain barrier, you pay 48%. Every dollar you earn, you pay 48% cents of 48 cents per dollar as tax. Most of the developed countries, it is the same, and even in the United States, you don't have free medical care. You have to have insurance cover. So we are giving everything here. So obviously, the people who have and able will have to contribute to the private sector of this country. As I said at the start of the conversation, have been mollycoddling every government for their personal benefits. And as I said, every budget they say very good budget, very progressive. Rather than saying you have not delivered the last budget and this budget, how are you going to deliver? So we all have to take the blame. I am also part of the private sector, but you know, Sulochana, I've been always very vociferous, and I am one who gets off by many people because they don't like me saying this. So that is the reality in Sri Lanka. If you tell the truth, you are finished.
Join the club, that's the only thing. There is another question. I think, what do you think we should be doing immediately as a matter of urgency to start the process of reform?
Yeah, so already it has been started. If you look at the central bank, they have now corrected, they released the exchange rate. So now it is reflecting probably closer to the market. So as a result, the Undial system reduced, the black market reduced in terms of the dollar black market. So what happens is people must understand what is dollar black market is. Your own country's dollars are being retained in another country. What he does is he buys your dollars and gives some extra rupees at the local end. Uh, that money doesn't come to the country. When it doesn't come to the country's banking system, the banking system doesn't have anything to service its own loans and to give the importers those dollars. So if anybody who is operating in the black or buying black market is helping the economy to be further dug into a deeper hole. That is the reality, but that is happening. Even the so-called educated are doing it. You can see the petrol prices are going up, like people are buying. Why the prices are up? So we have to stop the informal markets. It's a very difficult thing once you open it. Then the interest rates have been increased. Then the rupee has been taxes have been announced immediately. So they have also gone and started the renegotiating of loans. So China is not agreeing. There are other parties who are not agreeing. So it's not an easy thing. You can say do it, but guys who are doing it are doing it. But other side has to agree. Without agreeing, we can't forcefully drive something into their head. So the next thing is you need to go to the IMF after that. So the IMF money will, if we do everything right, will come towards end of the year. That is where I say starting
By
point.
December only it will come after all these things, this thing. But then there is another question: can an importer use their RFC accounts for foreign transactions?
No, importers use any RFC accounts for transactions because importers have to use what is available from the commercial banking system. So if the banking system can give you importers dollars, then you will be allowed. Otherwise, you will have to do some kind of mechanism to earn dollars. Number one thing is to earn dollars. So right now we will have a huge cut, and large number of industries will fall because the other day I was at the finance ministry and a lady walked in and said, "Look here, we are doing textiles and things like that in the huge market here." Uh, so sorry, but if you don't have dollars, you can't bring in textiles. Country has to have dollars to bring in textiles. So what do? You turn back and say you are an expert in textile and garment manufacturing, get into the export market. We have to say that whether we like it or not, so that under those circumstances, casualties are going to come. As I said, when Sarah Fonseca went to the war, 30,000 soldiers had to give their lives to win the war, right? Instantaneously. Another 100,000 had to sacrifice their life. We are in one of the worst economic downfalls, and the sacrifices are immense. I myself have sacrificed. I don't have business now, right? What do I do?
So it has to be, everyone has to play a part, not only politicians or the government sector or private sector, individually we all. There's another question: is there any specific reason for not legalizing numbered accounts in Sri Lanka? There are many countries got them.
What do you mean by numbered accounts?
Chaturika Vikramasinghe, if you can explain what you mean by numbered.
As you said, you are very correct. The problem is now all of us. We can blame till the sky come down. So I don't agree when people say it's from 1948 or 225. I'm not a person who agrees on that. There are very many good people who understand the economics. I can openly say Dr. Harsha Disila, my friend, understand this, and he has been crying in parliament for 3-4 years, right? We know, as I said, the Mahavali project and all those are very good projects. They were developed by America. A lot of people don't know that the Mahavali project was developed and designed by the American government and the Canadian government in 1958. Now, if we had to do it in 2019, we would have said we are going to give the country to the Americans in the East. That's how the MCC project was stopped in this country. We got $500 million to do some development in the Western province, and we threw it up by bringing up hypocritical, critical stories. And that 500 million today went to Nepal. Nepal has got that $500 million MCC grant, right? So a lot of people don't know that Mahavali project was designed and developed by, if you go to the website, you will find it. Americans surveyed and designed it. Canadians helped it to fully develop it. And then we went to various donor countries to get it done. So
I have that article with me, which was done in 1958 by London Times. I'm like, actually wanted to put it out. That was one of the first projects which actually London Times reported how Sri Lanka got the Mahavali. You are truly said, Rohan, a lot of people doesn't know the history of investment which came to Sri Lanka. As Ajit De Silva has said, I think he can speak later. He has said that you need to get this message out and explain to people. And there are many people who have said the same. I wish because we wanted to have a physical this thing with the country situation, we couldn't have it, but we are going to have a more program and make this awareness go out. That's why we are recording and we are going to put it out. Then there is Roshan Thazar. How about the money that's saved in other countries, especially to our BOI companies and software industries? Why don't they bring that money back?
I must tell you two things here to everybody clear. A lot of people just accuse that exporters don't bring money. Now, if somebody can tell me how an exporter cannot bring money, won't bring money when he has to pay his staff salaries, he has to bring his raw materials, he has to run his factory, he has to run his vehicles, right? The margin is about 5%. Now, and the local borrowing rate is now 30%. And you get more interest in Sri Lanka. So it doesn't make me any logic why people just accuse. These are just political, and some people who have no idea of what is going on make these statements about exports. Because I spoke to the former governor of central bank, Mr. Sunil Mendis. One time my boss at Hayes is chairman. He said the same accusation came when he was governor and he did a reconciliation. And he found that hardly there is no story about exporters not bringing in dollar. They calculated and matched it. Even today, the apparel industry, rubber industry, we have gone and told, do our auditing. These are merchandise exports. There's a customs declaration. You see whether this money has come. You can check it. So they are doing it and they know it's coming. The problem is the services exports. Services exports don't have a mechanism to track or declare. There is no customs declaration. So people declare various numbers. For example, tourism. Tourism, you know how they calculate X number of tourists that come to the country, and they calculate the average room cost and say they will spend $100 so much, and then multiply that and say that they are getting $4.5 billion. Now, even the Chinese workers, the Indian workers who come here for work, they calculate as tourists and multiply that and say that is our revenue. That is no revenue. In fact, those workers take revenue out. So these are very untouchable, unprofessional way of doing things. So if I am, you have to fact check before you say something. I cannot just put and say this is it. Somebody is not bringing so much. What is my rationality and the fact behind it, right? So problem is, as a country, we have not done enough to develop exports. It has been all lip service after President Premadasa left. Those who know President Premadasa, who have worked with him, know how dedicated he was for exports. Right? I know from the garment industry how he used to follow with us. Same with people like Ronnie Dimmer, right? They used to follow with us the next day. So we have lost that caliber of people, and people who have the knowledge of the macroeconomy and the international economy. There is international economy is directly linked to global politics also.
Yeah.
So some today about Russian oil. We know that there is a tug of war between Europe and United States, right? Okay, we go and buy Russian oil. US says, okay, thank you. We don't want to do business with Sri Lanka. The whole of our apparel industry is going to collapse, right? Right? European Union says no GSP for you, you collapse. And our 70% of our export market is United States and Europe. Right? So you got to be balancing politics also. It may be ugly, but it's reality. That's why I said when Mr. Modi's name was uglily mentioned by that so-called senior officer, today we pay that price for whole of month of July and June we are paying, having no petrol or diesel more or less, because the Indian credit line was taken off because of that horrendous statement. So this is what we
Then there is another question. Does giving priority to USD within Sri Lankan transactions mean that we are losing the sovereigns of the LKR? like what happened to the GBP with the euro?
Yeah, so we got to be very careful. In fact, the current governor is concerned about it. So we cannot dollarize too much. Specifically, anything dollarized has to be allowed now. Even petrol diesel is allowed for exporters to buy to paying direct to the CPC or the IOC. Now there it has been also further liberalized that anybody having dollars also can buy from CPC or IOC. Now that is very dangerous. Because what do? People go and buy these dollars from the Undial system or whatever the black market, and then when pay dollars. What happens? That brings back a vicious circle. The rupee has to be depreciated again, right? Because the market is again meddled by artificial system. So I met the governor yesterday. Actually, he was very concerned about it. Even these essential food items, they have given certain people 10 items to be brought under what is called open account. But it is not open account. It is Undial advance payment, which can hurt the economy. And I can see the black market slightly moving up again because of this relaxation. So I say financial discipline at a very costly price, which is painful, but we have to take it. It's like taking strong medicine to cure also.
Then there is another one in my, someone has said, most of the protesters are unaware of the actual situation. So how to, asking the president to step down or political, this will create any more political instability. What is your thinking of the situation?
So the one thing is, yeah, people of this country are not economically savvy in their knowledge. Unfortunately, so-called educated also don't understand because they don't read much. And otherwise, the world is in your fingertips today with the internet to refer anything. When somebody puts something, share it, you just read it and see whether it is actual truth. So in Sri Lanka, the economics is taught as an art subject. Whereas I myself is economic graduate, but I have a Bachelor of Science. In English, we call Arthika Vidya. But in our university system, it's called art subject. So getting back to the political conversation, as I said, political stability is very important. So I think there is a role for the president to now play. Obviously, we all know that the majority of the people want him out. So at least if he can announce a mechanism of saying, okay, I will finish by end of January or whatever, the whole thing will stabilize. Because we all know then there's a direction. Now today, if you can see the Boris Johnson UK is under severe pressure from yesterday night. Cabinet ministers have all resigned, and now I am getting reports that he has announced his resignation with a time period. So in a democratic country, when people are not happy, people are suffering, if there's leadership that feels that he or she is responsible and that was publicly accepted, I think it's ethical and morally right for him to give us a date. I also don't believe that if nobody can move out in 1 day or 2 days because there are legal ramifications and things like that. But it is up, in my personal opinion, he should now announce a date, maybe 6 months from now. Then everybody knows where we are heading for, and this social and disturbance and people's uncertainty will vanish for a while, and they will allow whatever the government to continue with some kind of reforms.
Agreed. Then Ajit, this has asked, have you read the MCC grant from the first page to the last page?
I have worked with the MCC grant. I am part of the MCC grant, and under the National Export Strategy, we were in fact involved in the grant getting the land reforms because lands are all scattered in Sri Lanka. So we actually wanted more funds for that. Rest of it was done for road transportation and public transportation development, which about 3,000 Sri Lankans were involved in designing this. So I myself was part of it, so I don't have to be reading it from up and down, but I very closely knew about it. And what was brought about was the famous Chandika Bandaranaike economic corridors. In 1998, when Chandika Bandaranaike was president, she developed 4 economic corridors in Sri Lanka. One was from Colombo to Trinco, one was from Trinco to South, and like that it was 4 from Hambantota to Colombo. What they amalgamated in the political agenda was to bring the MCC and said which as economic corridor going to Trincomalee, which MCC never had. If somebody can show me that MCC has an economic corridor to Trincomalee, then I will under something there. Somebody can show me the original document. But at the end of the day, MCCs have been granted to many countries, and our one went to Nepal. So Nepal did not surrender its sovereignty. I can tell you that much. No Nepali citizen is on the road say we don't want that. Of course, there was debate in parliament. That is right for a democratic country. But we stopped it. So whether it is MCC or many other projects, even the East Container Terminal, ultimately we gave West Container Terminal to 85% of the India, while we protested when we were going to have 51% of our own terminal with 49% to India. So we should have given that project. By now, they should have been earning foreign exchange. Within a year, it would have been earning foreign exchange. Today, the government of Sri Lanka doesn't have money to buy the trains. So the whole project is shifted for 3 to 4 years. All this nationalism is, destroying us. That is the reality. So if we don't, as I said in my closing remarks, if there is no mindset change, and if we are scared of foreigners, forget about becoming an open economic hub. Let's be let's say Cuba or something and wait like Cuba. So if people feel Cuba is happy, don't grumble or either. So we have to take a call. Whether we are going to be a Singapore or a Dubai or a Cuba is our own decision. And as far as now, I think we are more lenient towards the Cuban way of doing things.
Agree. Ron, this is my experience and the discussion I had yesterday with regard to the small scale entrepreneurs, because even though we say it's a purely 100% Sri Lankan, most of the manufacturing items are coming from abroad, it's imports, right? Then we do a product and we say it's a Sri Lankan product. But at the moment they are suffering because the imports has been this thing. What can a small economy, when you say restructuring, can economy, when there is a crisis, can shift to trading, then be a manufacturer?
So both, I don't think there is no restriction on both. If you are a trader also, if you are getting in dollars from your overseas partner, you can do your business too. There are people, intermediaries. There are two types. There's one thing called the tier one. Tier one is manufacturing indirect exporters. Indirect exporters who supply to the domestic export market are allowed to take exporters' dollars to import stuff. So their tier one is secured. Problem is the 100% imports without having any dollar income. That is where the problem is. So when the country doesn't have any dollars, simply we don't have dollars. So how can I give dollars when I don't have dollars? And if your dollar is being robbed off by a Undial man in Middle East and keeping it in Dubai account, country is not going to benefit, right? Your banking system is drying up and the banking system, financial system is under severe pressure. So nobody wants a financial system collapse because all our monies are going to be in the water, right? So these are very, very tricky things, sensitive things. It may hurt an individual. So I go back to myself, we are fighting a severe economic war. There are casualties, absolute casualties. People who are upper middle class can go into poverty. And that is what is happening. Reality is on the ground, I can see that is happening. So it's a long road to recovery, and we have to all bear this pain and do as much as possible our part, being productive, being responsible, being responsive, educate the uneducated. Those are things that we can do and help government also, and also criticize government when they are wrong. You can criticize the government, but you must also help government when they do the right thing.
Yes. So Shirani has said that we know that there's a huge crisis and no media is giving this information, all three languages, and making it a part of it individually. I think that's one of the key. And I actually brought Rohan because I know I have been working and I've been looking at him. The way he practiced, but again, you have to understand, as Rohan said, Sri Lankan media has their personal agendas and political agendas. So we have to be the people who to carry out this message. So it's a small gathering, because we didn't put it on Facebook Live even, we're not sure in that people will just ask questions. So that's one of the first step, but it will go out in a different way. We are going to have more discussions, and Rohan Sinhalese is much better than anyone's. So we have to get it in Sinhalese also. Hopefully, I'm trying to get it to the rural and also to this thing. So Shiranvi, this is just the first session. And if you really follow him on social media, you will learn a lot from him also. But then again, we have to be very open-minded, and we should not have political agendas with us so that it is easy. Sri Lanka is in this crisis not only because of politicians, because we also has played a role of having our own personal agendas into this economy. There is one question before we finish it off. We still can't trade on eBay. There are many other situations as such where, to my understanding, policies stop progressive outcomes. A normal person could sell something simple on eBay and earn. Again, I might be ignorant here on wider implications.
Yeah. So before I get to that question quickly, I must say today the Lanka Deepa I carry a full page, middle page article about in Sinhalese why Sri Lanka failed from 1961 equation of Singapore versus Sri Lanka. But coming back to this gentleman or lady's question, yes, a lot of people think that there is a policy decision that we are blocking eBay. No, actually eBay and most PayPal and other countries, other service providers are not keen to invest in Sri Lanka. The infrastructure meetings with them, even the central bank had meetings with them, tried to pursue them. So I worked with the MasterCard group for about 2-3 years, and in fact, I tried to get MasterCard to assist to talk to eBay. MasterCard is huge in India, so I tried to get them to assist eBay and both PayPal or the systems, but unfortunately, they are not keen on Sri Lanka. So as I said in many forums, we are much smaller economy than the municipal council of
Mumbai.
and understand what is free market and how free economies work. Of course, a large portion of this goes to the responsibility of the politicians who have messed up our country and the people of our country who have just abandoned their self-respect and gone to politics. And thirdly, we have brought in religion and the military kit into the economic management. So large number of people get away with that. When you have bring those things, even I cannot argue because it's very unpleasant. I don't get involved in I do criticize. So I think that's all I have to say, Sulo. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I hope the vision has had some interesting views, and these are my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope everyone reads his gossip. I think Gossip Lanka, he has given an interview, and if you can read that also, there are some information, but this recording will be on YouTube available, so you all can go through again. And thank you, Rohan, for accepting our invitation, and hopefully we can do a physical event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sulo. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.